Today, I'm going to show you how to create our self-stirring potion spinner that's going to give us endless swirls, as well as creating our Witch's Brew potion bottle. The things we need to create our self-stirring potion spinner and our Witch's Brew potion is one glass bottle, and I'm using a No. 2 black rubber cork with it. We will need some rubbing alcohol, as well as some purple food coloring and some bronze copper mica powder. We're going to embellish it with some black cording, silver hot glue, and a silver drawer pull. Then to make our self-stirring potion spinner, we will need a book box, and we're going to embellish that with a 3.5 and 1.5 inch hole saw. We're going to use some Mod Podge and crepe paper and a foam brush. Then we're going to need our magnetic stirrer, some of the magnetic spinners, and a battery bank. And finally, we will need our label printed on sticker paper, and the link for this is in the description down below. Let's get started. Would you like a chance to win a monthly potion bottle? Then consider supporting me over on Patreon. All of my patrons have a chance to win a monthly potion bottle. Patreon not your thing? No worries. You can become a member here on YouTube where you get exclusive icons and emojis to use in the comment section. Link is in the description down below. The first thing we're going to talk about is this magnetic stirrer. So this is a chemistry magnetic stirrer, and it's used to stir chemicals and potions and things like that. So we are going to utilize this to get our mica swirling potions to continue to swirl. So if you don't want it to just swirl for a little bit and then settle, this is a way to keep it going. And I've known about these for a very long time, and I've wanted to make a spinner for it for quite a while, but just hadn't had a chance to do it. So the first time I learned about these, I think I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and my dad took us to father-daughter work day and showed me and my sister the lab, and in there they had these magnetic stirrers, and they had a demonstration set up where you could play with them. So that was my first introduction to them. So I've known about them for a very long time, and they've really come a long way. They used to just be huge things that you could only have in a lab, and now this one is able to be run on a battery bank even. So really some great advancements. Now this is the normal size magnetic spinner, and they come in a variety of different sizes, colors, etc. But as you can see, it magnets to the base because what it does is they spin, and that's what creates the actual spinning or stirring movement. So as you can see, this one does have a cord, but it hooks up to a USB. So hook that up to a USB plug so you can plug it in. Or like what we're going to do so that it's actually battery operated and can be put anywhere, we are going to hook it to a battery bank, and this is just an old one that I had. And then we can turn it on. Now it has different spinning levels. It can go really, really fast or just a nice slow spin, which I actually think for potions is probably the best. And then you can just turn it off. But we'll be able to place this into the glass bottle, and we'll be able to stir up our potions, no problem, with the little spinning rod. So I will put a link to all of this in the description down below on Amazon. It's really cost effective, and the beautiful thing is you could use the same spinner on multiple potions. All you have to do is just pre-drop one of these in there so that you'll be able to just put whatever potion you want on top of our mechanism, and you'll be able to make any of them spin like that. And then when it's off, it'll still settle like normal. So let's go ahead and make something to hide this because it's not exactly cute. So I felt like the perfect thing to hide this in is a book box. And I picked this one up at Kirkland's, but you can get them at Hobby Lobby. Michael sometimes carries them, but they are really, really nice and very easy to conceal things inside of. Now, I don't love this rattan section here, but this one was on the clearance section, and I think I paid like $6 or $7 for it, so totally worth it. And it has nice shape, so I feel like when I cover it with our crepe paper, we're going to get a really good look for it. I may take some of the Tim Holtz distressing stuff and make a little bit of a difference on here so it doesn't look so pristine, but I do think that this will be perfect for what we want to use it for. So my thinking is, and I did measure, the top of this is 3.5 inches. So I got a 3.5 inch hole saw. Again, I'll put a link to it on Amazon. So my thinking is we're going to put a hole here in the top of our box because I'd like to attach this, and I am going to physically glue it onto the lid of our box so that when we shut it, it'll be in there. But we're also going to use the 1.5-inch hole saw to create a hole right here that will allow me to turn on and off the mechanism. Now, that's optional. You could just turn it on from inside and then put your bottle on. Now, if your bottle doesn't have a completely flat bottom, it may hop around a little bit, the spinner, before it actually centers up. So it just depends on whether you want to deal with a little bit of hopping or if you want it to just be able to sit on there and it'll set itself up automatically, and then you can click it on or adjust the speeds. So I'm going to make it so I can adjust the speeds, but you can do whatever you'd like. You could just do the top hole if you wanted, but we're going to put the top hole in. I'm going to put a hole here for me to adjust the speeds, and then we're going to end up covering the top of this with the crepe paper, so it'll hide the hole and it'll also make the book look cuter. And then we're going to kind of make a stack with this book with a couple other things and some paper, so it'll kind of have a whole vibe to it, but you can do as much or as little of the embellishing that we're going to do on it as you'd like. But this will be able to hide all of our mechanisms in there, and it'll be completely movable and transportable, and we'll be able to put it wherever we want with our spinning potion. So it could go outside, inside, it could go on a table that doesn't have any type of plug around it, any of that. So first things first, I'm going to drill the hole in this. Now I did measure that when the edge is here, I need to drill my hole 1.5 inches back. So the edge of my hole needs to be about 1.5 inches from the edge of my book. So that will let me know where I need to actually put the hole. So then that way I can line everything up. So like I said, I know it's 1.5 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and make a mark here. And if it's not like to the point 1.5 inches, no big deal. We're just trying to get a ballpark, so then that way you can get your fingers in there to adjust the spinner. That's it. Then the center of this from the edge, so I'm going to hold my tape measure here, is 1.75 inches, which I was hoping it should be because it's a 3.5-inch hole saw, so it should be 1.75 inches. So all I'm going to do then from my little mark I made is go 1.75 inches. And that tells me that that is where I need to put the center of my hole saw so that it lines up where I want it to. Once I get this made, I'm then going to make sure everything fits the way I want it to, and then I'll get this guy lined up. But for the moment, we're just going to cut the top. So we're going to go out to my garage, and we're going to cut through this. So once the hole was drilled, I lined it up, and this is where we're going to do our second hole.
When you're drilling this part, you do not want to put your thumb here, because when you have the drill, if it comes down, you could lose a thumb. That's not good. So when you're drilling, keep your hands really clear. If you have to, here, go slow when you're drilling. And if you really have to, you can use some clamps to try to do it so you're hands-free, because you do not want to lose any hands or fingers.
Now that I had my husband help me cut this, I always feel like 2 is safer than 1 when doing different projects with power tools. We now have our hole cut, and I, as you saw in the garage, held this up, and as you can see, the hole is the exact size of the little white circle that's in there. So that's where we're going to glue it, and when it comes down, it will be perfect. Just kind of have the battery underneath of it to give us an idea, but it'll be perfect for us to work our little mechanism. So the first thing I'm going to do is let my hot glue gun heat up, and we're going to glue our mechanism on there, and then that way we can then work on our book. Now that our hot glue gun is hot and ready to go, I am using the Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks. They are made for all kinds of things, outdoor, indoor, and they stay hot a little bit longer than some. They don't cool on contact, so you have a little bit of working time before it fully sets up, and I really like that. SureBonder has some too that do that as well, but my favorite hot glue gun, as you guys have seen in the past, is definitely the Gorilla Glue hot glue gun. The handle on it is fantastic. So I'll spin this so you guys can see. I'm just trying to line this up. Okay, and I'm just pushing this on good so it adheres nicely. And as you can see, I then have access to my on-off switch, which should be perfect. And it is sticking to the top of this very nicely. And that's another reason why I absolutely love Gorilla Glue. It gives you a really, really strong adhesion. And will make it so that you can trust that it's going to stay in place. And now, like I said, I'll be able to turn this on and off. No problem. And now that this is glued in there good, and this sucker's not coming off, I can now plug in my cord, and I'll be able to have that in there, and I'll be able to turn it on and off, no problem. And if you wanted to plug it in, because we made that hole, you still could. So you could just run your cord out through the same hole we're controlling it with, and then you could run this to your actual plug-in cord if you wanted it to be plug-in. So you have options, but I feel like the battery bank is a fantastic way to go. So then that way it is completely portable and you can put it wherever you want to. All right, so now that we have our spinner in place, we're going to decorate up our book. So we are going to be using this sheet of crepe paper that I picked up, and I'll try to put a link to some in the description, but this stuff is fantastic. You can use it for all kinds of things. It's really fun for wrapping gifts. It just adds a little something extra because of all of its little wrinkles and creases, but we're not going to need a ton, and I'm going to be able to cut some off of this edge. So I'm going to slice this about halfway down here, which, again, more of this will end up getting cut off because we're not covering the silver page part, we're just covering the actual book jacket. And then I can save this for another project. And then because, again, it's not going on the silver page part, I just need enough for it to flip up to here. So I'm going to be able to trim this as well. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of excess because you don't want to make it too short. But there's no reason to waste all of this excess crepe paper. All right, and again, I'll just save this for either wrapping a gift or some other project down the line. You never know what we'll use. And now I'm basically going to decoupage this. Now, beautiful part, again, about this crepe paper is it has these lovely creases. And because of that, it has some give. So if I wrap this, and I'm not going to cover it so tight that it's like gets rid of those creases. I want those creases. I think they add an element that's really nice. But if I tuck this under, you're still going to be able to feel our hole, and our bottle is still going to be able to sit on there. But it's going to mask it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to decoupage around the hole, leave the hole so that it has this little bit of give. So if somebody's just looking at this book sitting there, they're not necessarily going to know what it is, but our bottle is going to be able to sit on it and get to the spinner. So just so you guys can see that this is going to work, let me turn this on here. And as you can see, it's spinning no problem. And even if I was to lift this up a little bit more, it still attaches to the magnet and will still spin. So that's what's beautiful about this, is that we're going to be able to have a book that conceals it. Get in the middle. This is why turning it on in the middle and putting your bottle on is not the best option, because it jumps around. If we stop it and then restart it, you get the great spinning. So that's why I wanted to make sure I had a hole here where I could control the mechanism. All right, so we're going to decoupage this, and we're going to do this the same way that we've decoupaged several other things. If you looked at my printed potion book cover we did years ago, where we made a regular book look like a potion book with a printed design of our choosing, I'll put a link and a card to that above. And then we also used the same crepe paper and decoupaged a glass jar when we made Sally's potion ingredients. So I'll link those as well, but I'm going to just time-lapse this because it's just decoupaging. Okay, I have it all decoupaged, and we are going to let it sit and dry. All right, for our potion, we're going to do a pretty basic one. We're just going to fill it with our rubbing alcohol. And for this potion, I thought I would make it the color of my book, because I decided to make the label based off of my C and CC Apothecary logo that I have on different merchandise, and I add to a lot of different labels. So this design is kind of derived from my actual logo I use for C and CC Apothecary, and I figured, it's Witch's Brew. And I thought it'd be really fun to just make it purple, and then it's going to change colors. So for this one, I decided to go from purple to this beautiful bronze copper color. I thought about doing silver, and you definitely could, but we just used silver in Invisibility Potion not that long ago, so I decided for this one, I wanted to change it up a little bit and go with the bronze copper here. And let me use the spoon side as long as, yep, it'll fit in the neck. And for you guys, we will pour some of this out. Into here. And we'll mix the copper into this container so you guys can see how it will mix with the purple. It's so much more satisfying. You don't need to do this though. You can just put the copper right in your bottle and shake it up, and you will be good to go. So as you can see, it turns into this beautiful bronze copper color, and then when it settles again, it will be our purple. And again, you could make this whatever color you want. You could make it gold, you could make it silver. The silver, when I played with it, it made it still a purpley silver, so I really liked how the copper overtakes the purple altogether and will then turn back into the purple when it settles. And because we're making our spinner, we're going to make sure we add one of our little stirring guys in there. And even when we don't have it on our actual stirring potion, it's just going to help it mix up. So it doesn't hurt it. You're not really going to see it in there, but it'll be in there. So I'm going to dry the neck of this really well and make sure that the cork is good and dry. And then, like I've showed you guys before, I like to kind of rub around the cork to kind of rough it up a little bit. I feel like it helps it get a closer and tighter seal. And then we're going to push it in, and when we push it in, you're going to kind of twist and push at the same time. All right, and it looks like that's in there. Now, for this one, we're going to do something a little different. I have used the drawer pulls in the past on our regular corked potions because we could just push it through the cork. However, because we're using the rubber corks to keep the evaporation from happening and to keep it sealed really well, I don't really recommend drilling a hole through your rubber cork to put your drawer pull on. However, drawer pulls are made so that you can screw the actual drawer pull off of the nuts and bolts. So then we're left with just the drawer pull. So we are going to stick this in our sealing wax that we're going to drip on here so that it attaches it to the top of our cork and locks it in place. So that way it'll be there, but we still get our really good seal with our rubber cork. So just so you guys can see, I have that bead in there, and yeah, you'll hear it clinking around, but it's not going to hurt the bottle or the potion at all when it's not on the stir. And when it's on the spinner that will stir it up, it's just going to work that much better. So at this point, we're going to add our label, add our cording, and then we'll add our drips and put our little drawer pull on the top. You could also use a lamp finial, anything decorative like that. All right, and we're going to wrap the top of this with black cording. Just like we have several other bottles before. I'll put a link up above to my tips and tricks video where I go over this technique in extreme detail. If your drips don't do exactly what you want them to do, you can kind of help them. And you can also use your heat gun, and that will help as well. Now this one is truly a silver hot glue. If I would have used a silver sealing wax, it would have been really drippy very quickly. And this one was drippy, but it wasn't like crazy. The sealing wax would have been crazy, and it would have been all over the place. So as you can see, I'm just kind of helping this drip out a little bit, and I am going to get my heat gun out here in a second, but I'm just kind of filling in any weird gaps and getting it to meet the way I want it to. And I think I'm going to add another drip right here. And as you can see, I'm kind of helping to push it in a little bit and then help it follow down. And then I'll let gravity do the rest. And you can also, if you're doing like one drip at a time, you can kind of hold the bottle in a direction to help it out some if you need to too, but that really only works if you're doing one drip. If it's the whole thing, it won't work out for you. Now another thing, if you have these wispies and they don't want to come off very cleanly, you can take either your heat gun or you can use a lighter. This one is like one of the wind resistant ones, so it's almost like a little blowtorch. And just kind of hit it with that very slightly, and it'll get rid of any of those weird little wispies that are hanging off. Okay, so I am going to get my heat gun out, I think, just to hit a couple of these very, very briefly. So I didn't hit it very much or very long because you don't want it to heat your bottle up where it gets your alcohol all agitated and trying to spill and all that, because it will actually push your cork out if you get your alcohol too hot while it's still setting. But it just kind of helped get everything moving and a little less lumpy and smoothed out. So see how much more smooth both of these look? They look more natural. And then it just kind of helps everything mesh a little bit more. And I like how that added our little finial to just kind of give it another little look. And again, this one's not so much about the bottle, but I wanted to show you guys, you know, another technique or two on this one. This one's more about the actual spinner, but a cute bottle to go with it helps as well. All right, our book is pretty much dry. It's dry enough for at least us to do what we need to do with it. So again, I've got our spinner attached in here. I've got my little battery bank, but again, it could run the cord out this way, and we'll be able to put our potion on here. Now, another thing we can do is you could take other books or book boxes. So this is actually another book box I picked up from Hobby Lobby. This one has a magnetic closure, but it's much too small for our spinner. They had other ones that were the right size, but they were like 25 bucks, and I was not about to spend that when I could get this one for 6 or 7. So this is another book box, which I actually like the idea of incorporating another book box because you could then house your extra spinners in there if you wanted, or anything like that. But you could use a regular book as well. I may stack some other regular books. But another thing we can do is take some paper. So I might take a sheet of like scrapbook paper, and we could actually sit it on top of this, even though we can't see our hole, and it will still spin through all of this. So if we turn this on, there we go, we got it lined up. You're going to see that it's going to spin everything and just get a really great movement going on. And I'm going to back it down just a little bit because I feel like it's a little crazy at the bottom there. So that's going to just give us a nice good spin. So as you can see, I can even have the paper there. So if I wanted to layer even some torn paper or anything like that, it's still going to cover up that spot in our book. But then we'll be able to get a swirling spinning potion that will stay swirling as long as you want it to. And then when you want to turn it off, all of that mica will settle just like it normally does, and you'll get that color change. You could do this with so many different things. Every size bottle can work on here. And we'll get our beautiful spinning, swirling potion. And the more you layer around it, the less noticeable the little divot in the book is going to be. And there you have it, our self-stirring potion spinner that will be able to give us our swirls for as long as we'd like, as well as our Witch's Brew potion. Both of these will be amazing additions to our potion and prop collection we've made along the way. So if you guys like this video, give me the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and we will catch you guys later. Thanks so much.